All right. Hey, it's Coach Blauer back for another Candid COVID talk with my good friend, Ryan Munsey. I've been on Ryan's podcast a few times or 2 times or 3 times, and he's been on mine. He was a guest at our combatives camp and brought a great deal of insight into just kind of like the deeper understanding of why the spear system makes sense, why it works from kind of that anatomy and neuroscience perspective. And I wanted to invite him on this stuff because he's not a geek. He's also a deep thinker, and Better Human Project, that should tell you where his mindset is as far as the horizon goes. So Ryan, welcome to the show.
Tony, I'm excited to be here. I was telling you right before we hit record that when you told me about this, when we set the appointment, I was like, well, since he's asking the same question to every guest, I'm going to do a little bit of homework and see if I can prepare a little bit, see what these questions are. So I listened to the one you did with Brian Callen, and man, that was a great episode. So I was telling you, I feel a little bit of a pressure to deliver at that level.
Well, you better not suck now. You got the questions ahead of the test, and you made the mistake of, a lot of people think that Brian, if they just know him superficially, they just think he's like a funny guy on the internet or a comedian, but he is like, I've known him for years. Super smart, and deep, like passionate about the stuff he's smart about. There are people that you and I know that are smart because they're like the nerds I was teasing about. They're like book smart and they remember things, and they're, geniuses in this, but, watching Brian work, man, like behind the scenes, I've been, and this is about you, but just, I don't want to talk about Brian for the whole show. Okay, Ryan, I got to go. Thanks for talking about Brian Callen. But, I've been out to dinner with him up in LA, eating at his favorite Italian place, and we're just shooting the shit we're talking about fighting and battle and war, and he loves the spear, and he's always asking me questions, and he loves boxing, and we're yakking, and then he'll get a text message. I remember this, we were up at Via Veneto up in Santa Monica, and he gets this text message. It's like 9 o'clock reading. He goes, okay. He goes, hey, what are you doing after dinner? I just got asked to come do a set at the Comedy Store or something. Okay. And then like we eat and then race over there, jumps on stage, does a set. I mean, goes from talking politics to it's just amazing how he can shift gears. And so anyways, all of that to say, you better not suck today, man, because I invited you on. There's no editing. And so let's start off.
Pressure.
So the questions, which makes it harder on me to be as natural as possible. So I'm just going to start. Most people aren't researchers like you. Most of the people I've had on here haven't written books, so I don't understand research and stuff like that. But the obvious thing is, the first question is how are you doing? How are you personally?
I'm doing okay. I think we're all kind of in that space of trying to accept the reality that we're in right now. And, for me, my day-to-day really hasn't changed that much. The biggest change for me is, usually every 2 or 3 weeks I'm traveling. So that's been the biggest adjustment. But when I'm not traveling, my days at home, my work days look exactly as they do now. So for me personally, not much has changed. Now, as you know, and as we'll probably get into this a little bit more as we go deeper, my wife, Donna, is a physician. She works in the hospital. So on that side, she's been hit pretty hard by this, and we have as well. And so, it's really just kind of, I don't want to say like shrink and pull back, but, a lot of things have just been put into secondary or tertiary priorities. And the main priority right now is, making sure that she's okay and she has the energy to go into the hospital and do what she needs to do.
Right. Very true. My next question is, how's your family? And you've just described your wife. But when I wrote that question, and when I put this together, just a refresher for people maybe new to this type of interview format, is most of the time when people are on a podcast, it's like, how's the new book? It's like there's an agenda, like, so anything we need to know? Yes, I have a new, mastermind class that I need to fill. Could we talk about this? And while that's all legit, this I really like I was confused at how I could help people. Like, we're locked down. I mean, never, as I was listening to an interview this morning, but never in the history of the world have healthy people ever been quarantined. It doesn't even make sense. If you look up the definition of quarantine, you don't quarantine healthy people. You quarantine sick people. And so there's all these elements of overreach and freedom and rights and all that. And when I wrote this, when I came up with the idea for this short talk, it was, who are the smart people that I know that that have a blend of critical thinking, but also self-awareness and in like a situational awareness to try and better the people around them, which you've obviously done with your podcast and all your mission and your book and all that. That's really, I think at the foundation of you is, how do I help people be better versions of themselves? How do we self-actualize? So when I wrote this, I was like, okay, I'm going to ask these people questions as if we were just sitting on the side of in a park talking. And it's like, how's the family doing? And so when I ask about the family, because you just described your wife, I want you to also bring in, because I'm hoping that through osmosis and however you answer, that people realize there are other people that need to feel their strength and receive some of their courage, or even just a phone call. And so when I say this next one, how's your family? I'm talking about, your uncle in New Zealand. I'm making that up, right? Like, have you connected with family around? How's everybody doing? On a regular basis, I text my mom and my two sisters more than I ever have pre-pandemic. We go like a month and not talking. Now it's every week.
Right. Yeah. When it comes to the extended family and, even friends, it's been, like I said, when I answered about how I'm doing, I think we're all trying to accept this reality. And my dad travels for a living. He's a lot like me in that, when he stays at home for more than, a week or two at a time, he's getting antsy. And so, he's going stir crazy. And so, I'm talking to him, and, he's in sales. So, a lot of the factories and companies that he works with have been, some are shut down, some are not. And so he's trying to figure out, what do I do with my time? And, he's at about that retirement age. So I actually talked to him yesterday in the middle of the day. And, he was joking. He's like, well, it's 12 o'clock. I'm done for the day. So going to go out and sit on the tractor and do some mowing. And, he made the joke about, he couldn't wait to retire. And, now he's gotten a 2-month glimpse of what it would look like to not travel or work and do anything. He's like, I want no part of that. And, now, of course, we realized, like if he was retired and we weren't under quarantine conditions, he would be able to do some of the things that he enjoys. So it's not quite, a perfect glimpse of what that might look like. But yeah, and like I mentioned, Donna, I think you kind of hit the nail on the head where, we can't give what we don't have, right? And most of us, especially people that listen to your podcast, are involved in some way in protecting or caring for or serving others. And at this time, we're really challenged with, a lot of unknowns and, our own routines, and everything has kind of been upended. So it's very, we may not feel stable, and we may not feel like ourselves. And that makes it harder to show up for others. And so I think it's just, it puts further emphasis on the need for us to lean into those strategies, tools, tactics, whatever you want to call them, that we utilize to be our best selves, whether that's meditation or gratitude practice or breath work, whatever it is. But it's being aware that we're going to have to spend a little bit extra time, taking care of ourselves. And maybe that's group text, reaching out to people, talking to people more than you might. I've got a couple of group texts with some friends that, I'm having, and most of the people I'm talking to are having more, let's call them weird days, right? Where it's not necessarily a down day or a bad day, but it's just like, it's getting to me today. And those group texts have been really powerful for myself, for a lot of the people that I'm in those texts with. Conversations like this, like Brian mentioned it, you're mentioning it, that this podcast in itself is a way for you to, try to answer some questions or show up in new or better ways. So I don't know, maybe that answers your question.
Yeah, no, it's cathartic just in, I mean, all of us have people in our lives that don't like to reveal their emotions or fears, and I make a joke now over and over again that fear needs a new management company, because there's a stigma even talking about fear. And you can see body language being around 60% of communication when somebody's troubled. Excuse me. And so, we all have somebody go, you walk in the room and you go, hey, what's up? Nothing. You sure you look like something's, well, if you want to talk, and then like a day or 2 days or 2 hours or 3 days or a week later, they finally go, I didn't get into college, or I'm waiting for this test from the doctor and I'm scared shitless, or I'm, the company's not doing so well and I'm worried about. But what people don't remember in that experience is that after they talked about it, that's when solutions and movement started to happen. And so we hold on to this because of fear. And, yesterday morning, my wife started a conversation. I'm not going to complete it, but she says, you probably don't want to know about this, but I think I should tell you. And I was like, well, no, actually, I don't want to know about it. But it's just this idea of, do you have a support group, an unconditional person in your life that you can go, fucking scared, I'm worried about this, I'm worried about that. And even if you don't have a solution, just talking about it changes. And people need to really, for some reason, man, how fascinated I am with the psychology of fear, and how, how we feel affects how we think, and how we think affects how we feel. And both of them influence what we do, how we move. And so it blows my mind that we remember and hold on to this fear loop. And we forget that anytime that was exposed, some metaphorical light was shined on that, we go, I feel so much better than I tell you now. Or oh my God, that I never thought about that solution, that idea. So it's interesting. I know that stuff is fun for you. So yeah, no, your answers are great. And somebody listening to that, like, I don't have a group chat, and made me think, fuck, I don't have that outside my immediate family. I'd never started a group chat. And, I've got a team of trainers that support me and work their asses off for the company. And then I've got, remote friends, people that we used to go to dinner with. And I do individually check in with them. But it made me realize, just listening to you, shit, there's 2 or 3 group chats that I need to initiate. So thank you for that.
Yeah.
Specifically business. It's interesting because everybody I've interviewed is more productive, working harder. You see the benefits in this, because it just, most of the people that I know, are entrepreneurs who go, I'm going to try and make the world better by doing this. So a lot of us go, if you reverse this and said, how are you doing with this? I'd be like, I'm working harder. I thought I was working my ass off before. I'm working harder than I ever had. I guess I was slacking for the last 30 years. So how has this affected your business? And more specifically, what have you done to adapt?
Yeah. You mentioned kind of how we are as entrepreneurs. And I think when you are an entrepreneur, you tend to have a lot of friends who are entrepreneurs, right? We kind of run in those same circles. We think alike. We have the same values. So it makes sense that you kind of gravitate towards other people who think that way. And I was a guest on another podcast yesterday, and we kind of got into this line of conversation where, you know, yes, entrepreneurs may be answering that question right now of like, I'm working harder or I'm pivoting, right? That's the word everybody's throwing around right now. And but the truth is, as an entrepreneur, you have that ability, and that's part of what draws us to entrepreneurship, right? It is the ability to, you know, we may value uncertainty or at least opportunity more than, say, somebody who pursues becoming a pilot, right? Like they clearly value stability and certainty in their profession. Now, the downside to that is, if you're a pilot right now and the airlines are shut down and they're cutting jobs, like what are you going to do? Like you only have, you don't have the ability to pivot and look for alternative revenue streams in your business. And so, you know, part of that is our just the way we're wired. It's our personality. It's our preference as an entrepreneur. You know, so the tactics, you know, to answer your question, I am very fortunate in that, you know, we are very fortunate, Donna and I, that neither of us has been hit tremendously hard by this. You know, I will probably see, I don't know, 20 to 40% hit in revenue because of the inability to speak and do workshops. But you know, as you've said, you know, because we're entrepreneurs, we can see that and we can pivot or look for ways to fill that time with other revenue producing things. You know, and that's going to look different. You know, you're not able to do, you know, some of the in-person trainings and workshops that you know, you usually do. So you're filling that with, you know, online courses and how can I reach people in other ways? And I'm doing the same thing. It's given me the opportunity to spend more time on this next book project that I'm working on. Unfortunately, when all of this happened, my goal was to, at the end of the quarantine, have the next book written. Now, there are a couple of things that have prevented that from happening, and I don't want to sound like I'm shirking responsibility, but it is a collaborative project. I have a co-author, and we're working with a publisher. So it's not like I'm writing my own book and I can just sit down and do whatever I want to do. So we're kind of in a holding pattern right now with the publisher. But if we get word back from them and kind of we're on the right path, continue down this path, then I can just put blinders on, go into monk mode. And, you know, the quarantine is almost an excuse to do that and not feel guilty about ignoring everything else.
Right.
And like I said, unfortunately, I haven't been able we haven't gotten that green light. So I've actually been pursuing another business opportunity that, you know, maybe we'll have more to talk about that down the road, but it is, you know, it's called Fuel of Pursuit. And, you know, basically we're bringing some of the high level performance and nutrition strategies, you know, that, you know, I'm passionate about to individuals that enjoy the backcountry, wilderness, hunting, snowboarding, climbing, that kind of adventure stuff.
Nice. Interesting.
Yeah. So the short answer is, you know, I'll take a hit in some areas, but I do have found time and opportunity to, you know, allocate that time to other projects.
Right. Which segues nicely into the next question, which probably wasn't an accident when I wrote this, is what is the best thing for you as for the lockdown, about the lockdown?
You know, I think the best thing about this for all of us is the opportunity to hit pause. You know, we've never been given an opportunity like this in our lives. You know, I grew up watching Saved by the Bell, so I've been thinking about this a lot as like a Zach Morris calling time out. And I know time hasn't stopped, but the world more or less has. And it's giving us the opportunity, if we choose to take it, to reflect on, you know, our paths, our passions, our financial spending. You can literally audit everything, how you spend your time, what you're spending your money on. A lot of trips got canceled, a lot of plans got canceled. And so we're all so guilty of just staying in motion, right? It's one of the laws of physics. And we continue on these paths because we're on the paths and we're doing the things. And now they've been halted. So we have the opportunity to say, okay, when this train starts, chugging along again and it starts moving, like, do we want to continue?
Mm-hmm.
And do we want to try to get all the way back exactly the way we were in all those same areas? Or do we want to come back and say, I don't know, I don't want to put ideas in people's heads, but whatever, audit those things. Do you want to reprioritize, how you spend your time, your money, your projects, the people that you're around, the information that you consume, all those things. And so I think there's a gift here if we choose to look at it that way, that the pause button has been hit and we can really look into what our priorities are. And I think there've been a lot of great posts and memes about, professional athletes right now, right? Like the highest paid people in the world have been deemed non-essential and they're not working. And, now you've got, doctors and, truck drivers and first responders and all these other folks who are, extremely essential, and we know who the real heroes are. Yeah, I forget how the rest of the meme goes, but you get the point. And so, that's a societal priority that we can re-examine, but there are priorities for us as individuals that we can also re-examine right now.
Yeah, that was actually your answers have been robust. That was my favorite so far. This forced pause where you kind of defrag, reboot, if you want to use that computer metaphor. And you just realize that we've been running, not just in motion, like running, trying to keep up with email, trying to keep up with text, trying to keep up with status, trying to keep up with, and now, so the hard thing, and it's nothing that I want to get into in detail, but, I turned 60 this past weekend, and I've been working for 40, 41, 42, 43 years on my current craft. And I've reached a certain station in life where the pause, if I can be transparent with everybody, where the pause was welcome. Even though I'm working harder than I ever have, I can also go, okay, enough of that. I'm going to go for a little hike in the trail near here. I'm going to walk by the car I'm not driving. And then when I come back, should I have an espresso? Should I make a smoothie? And there's people fucking starving. Right. And I don't have guilt about that because that's just the way the world is. But I'm self-aware to go, like, we're okay. And it ties back to the same thing with you. You built a life, with your wife, you live on a beautiful property in a beautiful part of the country and you work for yourself. It's other people are freaking out, and living month to month, have no money and stuff like that. And it's crazy. So on that down note, let me ask you, what is the worst thing about the lockdown?
Yeah. Before I answer that, happy belated birthday.
Thank you. Thank you. You know what? Hang on a second. I've been every day I check in the mail, and I know you probably sent me some fantastic gift, but it hasn't gotten here yet. So did you send it by UPS or FedEx or? Okay.
I'm going to blame it on USPS.
Right.
Word is they may go under. So
right.
let's throw them under the bus.
Right on. Okay. But in all, thank you. In all seriousness, worst thing about the lockdown.
The worst thing is, and this is actually not my thing. This is a thing that Donna is really struggling with. So we moved to this area because this is where she grew up. Her father passed away. We moved here because he was sick and battling cancer. And so her mom now lives by herself. Her mom doesn't drive. So even without a quarantine, her mom can't leave the house without one of the children or grandchildren going to get her. And, with her being in that age population of, being extremely at risk,
Yeah.
family can go check on her and talk to her, through the screen door, stand on the porch and talk to her through the door. But, she just looks at me and says, when am I going to be able to hug my mom again?
Mm.
And man, it fucking breaks my heart. Like, I don't know what to tell her. And this as a man, like, our tendency is to fix things. Right. And, when that's your partner, that's your woman. And like, there is nothing I can do to fix that.
Right.
That hurts me and it hurts her. And, even when the lockdown is over, Donna works in the hospital. She treats people with coronavirus. So, even if the powers that be say, hey, this lockdown's over, you can go do whatever you want to do. Even at that point, it still may not be the smartest thing for her to, now obviously she's not going to drive straight from the hospital to her mom and hug her
Right.
mom wearing her work clothes, but still, having been exposed to it, is it okay for her to go over there and see her mom and give her a hug and, spend time in her home? And, that's a really tough question. And I think that's the worst part about it for us.
That's crazy. That's crazy. And I know that if my wife were here, she would somehow force you to have your wife get on and start talking all about this, because there's so much disinformation, misinformation, manipulation. And I'm sure, and I've got friends in medical in the hospital, and the ones that are honest are privately messaged going, man, it's a shit show. It's like the virus is real, but this whole idea, like,
Mm-hmm.
and
Yep.
we don't have to go there because your wife is in the practice, but it's like suddenly nobody's dying of anything else. Everyone's only dying of COVID-19. Like,
and that is such
wrong.
a valid point. Yeah, that's so valuable to remind people of that. And there are still people in the hospital for everything else. So the hospital that Donna works in, they usually have between 6 and 8 attending physicians on the floor. Now that's not in the ER, that's like on the floor. And only one of those is assigned to the COVID unit. And they do that to, reduce in and out. Right. And so they're able to do that because where we are, we have not been hit hard. They may only have like 10 to 20 COVID patients. So that's one doctor can tend to all
Right.
of them. And the rest of the attendees on service can attend to the rest of the patients. But you're right. Like, people still have heart attacks. People still break their legs. Women are still giving birth. Can you imagine going to the hospital right now to give birth? Like, how scared would you be about
Right.
bringing a child into this world, potentially worried about them being exposed to this? And there are so many things that we could talk about related to this. If I can talk Donna into coming on, that would be the hard part. I try to get her on our podcast and she
Right.
won't. She doesn't want to do it. But from day one, like you said, this has been a shit show. I mean, when this stuff started happening before all the shutdowns, she was saying, they knew that there was a shortage on testing. They knew there was a shortage on PPE, the protective equipment, before the public, before the news and all that. And then even where we are now with, the moral and ethical questions of, quarantining and shutting down, the politics of it all. You put that aside, and like you said, people are dying from this. The virus is there, whether it's, there's conversations to be had about where it came from and how it spread so fast and all that. But, it's kind of like somebody's hanging off of a cliff right now. And this isn't the time to stand on the top of the cliff and tell them about the inherent dangers of,
Gravity.
free, like solo climbing El Capitan. Like,
Right.
this is like reach down and grab their hand and get them out of this situation.
Right.
And yeah, I mean, I almost forgot about this, like talking about some of the worst parts of this. My uncle passed away a few weeks ago, and we can't have a service. So
Right.
like, there's no funeral, so I know know a lot of people are upset about their spring break being canceled or their graduation, not being able to walk. I mean, there are some very real negatives with this, and yeah, we'll stop there. There's a lot of different rabbit holes we could go down.
Yeah. Let's try and keep this. It's easy to get.
We'll go positive.
Down a rabbit hole and stuff like that. But there's, I believe that the intention initially to lock everything down was in good faith, and I think as time goes on, people go, yeah, we overreacted, but we didn't know what to do. We were just, people can do their own research. It was, that UK paper that predicted 2 million deaths or whatever it was. And it was like, holy shit, like, what do we do? But it's clear that that's not the case. We don't need to pseudo house arrest people who are super healthy. We need to protect the people that are at risk. And it's not just elderly; it's elderly with conditions, right, that predispose. Because there's, and then what do you do? Well, I mean, that's life. That's life. As scary as that is, it is life. But anyways, there's, talking about information out there and where do you believe? Of course, we've got confirmation bias and cognitive dissonance and all these psychological fancy terms that maybe half the people listening to this don't even know what they mean. But we all have our own unconscious bias, which is a fancy way for saying our own echo chambers. If you look at the news that supports how you feel and you go, see, and then you see somebody's opposing view and you go, see, and so my question for you is, where are you getting your info and how are you verifying that?
Well, the verifying part for me is a little different than most because my wife is a doctor and I have a degree in science and, I'm a nerd with all that stuff. So,
right.
I either reference like books, studies, my own knowledge of, all this stuff.
This is not true, right? These are facts, right?
Right. So I'm kind of fortunate there. When it all first started happening, obviously we had to pay attention. And of course you're drawn to it, right? It's like the rubbernecking on the highway. Like you can't look away, but at a certain point, like how much news do you need? Like, do you, so I've turned it all off. I don't read the articles anymore. I don't watch the news. I don't do any of that stuff.
Smart.
Maybe once a week I'll check in with, what our governor has done. But, for example, if they say, hey, we're going to reopen on, May 15th. Well, if he says that on May 2nd, I don't need to look at that on May 3rd, May 4th, May 5th, May 6th.
Right.
Like, so I'm not. And I have just found that, at least initially, the first, like I said, first 1 or 2 weeks, we were watching it every day. And when you can't and don't get away from it, it consumes you. And it makes it very difficult to, sit down and do the work, that we're trying to do, while we're quarantined. And so, somewhere around week 2 or 3, I just said, I'm not watching it anymore. And that doesn't put me in, my head is not in the sand. I mean, like I said, Donna's still in the hospital, so I'm getting reports from her and, my information comes from the people who are actually in it, doing it. And, I've interviewed, some pretty high level, medical professionals and kind of gotten some information from them. And, I definitely don't listen to the media.
Really? That's a joke. No kidding. So we've already talked about this, but I asked this question to everybody: what bothers you the most about what's going on? And everyone has already answered, I hate this, that, couldn't do the funeral. My wife can't hug her mom. This breaks my heart. But every time I ask somebody, if you peel that onion, there's like that thing, there's that one thing, and you might have already said it, but sometimes when you just keep talking, you realize it's almost like when you remembered your uncle, you're like, oh my God, I almost forgot this, right? Like, is there something that if you had to pick, this is actually the thing that bothers me the most?
So I'll confess that this answer is one that is semi-prepared, based on listening to you with Brian. And I think the way you asked him was, if you're a couple of glasses of wine into the conversation, do you answer this a different way?
Right.
And, peeling the onion, I mentioned my dad struggling with being at home, right? He travels and likes to travel and likes to go do things, whatever. And I'm the same way. And when I start to peel that and dig into that and investigate that and say, okay, well, what is it about me that, why do I need to leave the house every 2 or 3 weeks? And what am I seeking? What is out there? Or what is it about that makes me think there is better than here? And as I start to try to unpack that and peel that onion, I'm reminded of something. I interviewed Joel Salatin a few years ago. And if you don't know Joel, he's the godfather of regenerative grass-fed farming. And I interviewed him at his farm. And he said something, I forget the way he phrased it, but the basic sentiment of what he said was, to make the space where you live a place that fills your soul, satisfies you, and is such that you don't feel like you always have to be leaving or traveling or going places. And it reminds me of a lot of, there's some lessons in Eastern philosophy. I know you read a lot of Japanese stuff and Chinese, philosophy, and I think there's some lessons around that in those literature or those texts as well. And when I think about that and kind of overlay that with, how we're all responding to being forced to stay at home, I think if we're willing to, if we have the courage to look into that and ask those questions, have we really built a home that we're comfortable being in and staying in? If we can't be still, if we can't sit without distractions, without our phone, without the next podcast or book or YouTube video or social media, I think like on a micro level, there's that, can you sit and just be without distraction? But on a larger scale, can you sit at home for a day, for a week, for a month without having to go somewhere to feel satisfied or to be entertained? I don't know. I think that's kind of where my head has been for the last, few weeks, or just trying to figure that out. And I don't know.
Yeah, no, interesting, deep answer. I mean, in my head, my brain is, firing on all cylinders, because there's a part of, what's your calling and what do you do? I mean, if you're an explorer and that's your calling, right? If you're a nature photographer and that's, what you do, or you're a climber, or you're a pilot, but you're not a pilot because you're looking for security, you're a pilot because you love flying.
Right.
Like it just changes. Like, it's asking whoever your most favorite painter is, hey, they banned painting, now just go meditate, with, and listen to Alan Watts, talk about if you can't meditate in a boiler room, you just can't meditate. Right. And what a deep thought that is. But the idea is, like, that means if you can't just be yourself with all the distractions of the world, then you're always going to be looking for some sort of, distraction from looking at yourself. But it's so much more complex than that. And that's, a way deeper, longer stuff. But it's cool that you're doing that. And it comes back to what I said earlier. I can imagine, a lot of people listening to this go, well, that's easy for you guys to say. You're an entrepreneur. I'm working week to week just to feed my 3 kids. And now I've been told I can't. And, I think my wife would poison me if I started meditating right now. So, it's, but it doesn't change the metaphysical question. The metaphysical question is still there.
Right.
But okay. Next, without making this political, if I said, Ryan Munsey, you are in charge, you're in DC, what are you doing right away?
I am surrounding myself with subject matter experts, people that really understand this thing. And I think the very first thing I would do is I would like to get rid of everyone who's already there, and just start.
That's the answer.
Start.
Stop there. Because I will say, I posted something from Dennis Prager today, and he's very compelling argument that it's the experts that have created this problem. That it's scientists who don't realize they have a political bias have created these places. He says you can't even. He said something really interesting that you'd appreciate with your background. He said you can't trust scientists anymore. He says not science,
right,
but scientists. And so I didn't mean to interrupt you, but I had because it's interesting. Your first answer, I would surround myself by experts. Well, the experts are what created this problem.
My trusted experts, nobody who's there now.
Right. And but I loved what you said, that you would get rid of everybody.
It's like, think about any movie you've seen where like the hero of the movie and the person helping him, they're like, or her, and they're like, okay, we're gonna save the world, but we can't go to the authorities because we don't know how deep the conspiracy or like whatever it goes. We don't know who we can trust. So, it's not it's just, like you said, you don't know who you can trust. You don't, a lot of the scientists are, they're so embedded in, the orthodoxy, or, whatever you want to call it. It's just get everybody that's there out, bring me people that I can trust to, tell me the unbiased truth, the actual science, and, what do we need to do? I think that's where I would start. I certainly don't pretend to know what we should do or to have the answers.
Well, if they put me in charge, I know what to do. But anyways, we'll wait and see. So my ringer's on, DC. Okay, good. No, it's a great answer. And this one you've already answered, but again, it's that onion peeling stuff here. You're now, you have a dog, right?
No, we don't.
I thought you did. I want to know why I did.
No.
Are you an animal guy or no? This is a careful question.
I am.
Okay. Like, you don't ever say publicly, I don't like dogs, right?
No, we lease. We have this beautiful property that we live on, but it's a lease, and we're not allowed to have animals. And since we do travel so much,
Okay.
We've just decided not to.
So you're out on a walk with your virtual dog, and you look down at the dog while you're walking, and you're like, you know what the most challenging thing for me, and you said some like heavy shit, the stuff with Donna, the stuff with your uncle, like, it's like, how deep can this go? And there may or may not be an answer, but for you, when all is said and done, what is or will be the most challenging thing for you going through this?
I have ADD, and I crave novelty. It's very difficult for me.
Stand by 1 sec. My dogs are freaking out. 1 second.
Yeah.
Hey, sorry about that, guys. I have 5 dogs, and you try to sneak up on my property, and the alarms go off. But go ahead, Ryan. Sorry.
No worries. So, the question is if I'm walking my virtual dog. The hardest thing for me is staying present in this moment that lasts longer than a normal moment, right? Mm-hmm. I have ADD. My brain craves novelty. It moves very quickly. I'm blessed that I can process information extremely quickly. And so, for me to stay present in a moment is tricky, even on a normal basis. And when the moment, like as we said earlier, kind of the world is on pause, right? So when we're through this and we look back on whether it was 2 months or 6 months or 2 years, I really want to be able to say that for the entire length of this thing, I was able to stay focused on the things that mattered, in this moment. As I said earlier, right now, that is, making sure that Donna has, the husband that she needs to come home to after work. And, when she has time off, that I am focused on her and helping her recover and recharge. And because no matter how hard this thing is on all of us, it's so much harder on the doctors and the people who are dealing with this on a daily basis. And so, to kind of stay out of my head and my experience, and to be able to show up for and be there for her the way I need to be for as long as that takes.
Amazing. Yeah. It's almost like a persistent moving meditation. If you decide, I'm going to go meditate for 10 minutes because I got ADD, you're trying to follow your breath or your mantra or whatever you're focusing on. And you're trying to notice when your brain goes, what about this? What about this? And come back to center. But in this case here with how you are, like, that's 24/7. If you're awake 24/7, that's okay. Stay focused, stay present. I dig that. And that's something I think that I think we all have that. I think everybody has a degree. It's like, non-clinical anxiety. I think everyone has like a non-clinical ADD. I mean, especially dopamine hits from the phone, checking messages. Did you call me? Did you text me? Did you get my text? Did you get my email? I want to make sure you got my email. Like, it's like, calm down,
Yeah.
Okay, cool, man. I dig this. Some really, really deep answers. Final message for people listening. Life, fear, mindset.
I think I would go back to, what we were talking about kind of in the middle of this, and maybe trying to find the silver lining in this. And, this is a pause or a timeout, and we've been given an opportunity that we've never had before, and we may, hopefully, we never have this again, to reevaluate our priorities and, audit everything, who you hang out with, who you listen to, what you believe, where you spend your money, how you spend your time, all that stuff. And when we come out of this timeout, you're getting a chance in many ways to start fresh. And I understand that for some people, it may not be an ideal new start, but there are a lot of things that that we can audit and change so that they're more aligned with where we want to go and who we want to be.
Yeah, I love the word audit, and it was interesting that you used the word timeout, because without turning this political, I immediately thought about just like, some of the overreach in, you can't go to the beach, you can't do this, you can't do that. I saw an amazing meme. A friend of mine has a private Instagram account, and he posted, it was a cop on an empty beach telling somebody who was sitting on a beach, they got to move. It's not safe here. Go to the Walmart over there. It's safe there. And it was like, but it was like just the lunacy of that you can't go to the beach, but you can actually be in a Walmart or a pharmacy with 100 people, or a grocery store, but you can't be in a public beach. But
as long as you're wearing a mask in there,
right? And but the timeout thing made me kind of triggered that, as like, hey, okay, timeout. Everyone go sit over there for like 6 weeks. Okay, come on back in. Yeah, that's another heavy talk. Hey, dude, this was really, really interesting, very provocative, but you are an interesting guy, and you're a deep thinker, and I appreciate that. And what's the best way for people to reach you or learn more about what you do?
Website, ryanmunsey.com, is definitely the hub for everything. You can find podcasts there, books, that kind of stuff. I'm really not big on social media, but if I am, it would be Instagram, and that's at Ryan Munsey _.
Beautiful. Dude, be safe.
You too.
Same thing. Donna's your wife is one of the first responders in this. I always refer to this as the equivalent of 9/11. It's the medical 9/11. There should be no politics. It just should be the operators moving downrange towards the threat. In this case here, our operators are our doctors, our scientists, and all the, I hate the term essential workers because everyone's an essential worker. If you're trying to live and feed yourself and your family, you're essential to them. Hopefully we'll be through this soon and happier days. I love the whole pause thing and reflect. It's a choiceless choice. So everyone's got to do that. Okay, man, be safe. Thanks for making the time to get on the show.
Always make time for you, Tony. Thanks for having me on.
Thanks, buddy.